Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. Welcome to the Big Data webinar series brought to you by Information Management Group, IM Group in short. Our webinar today focuses on big data on small screens, but in addition, we'll also be looking at the implementation roadmaps and what big data holds for you in the future. I'm Saranjan Som, Practice Head Business Intelligence at IM Group, and I'm supported in this webinar by a number of individuals this morning. Quick look at the agenda. Very quick introduction. I know we've already been through 2 episodes of this webinar in the past 2 weeks. The recordings are already available on YouTube as well as through our website. If you are interested in the previous recordings as well as the recording for this morning's webinar, do email us at webinar@imgroup.com and we'll get back to you straight away. But in addition to that, we'll probably also do a quick recap of what is big data, what are the key challenges, and what are the key benefits out of big data, how it can actually apply to you. So we'll do a quick recap of that just to get the mood right for the morning, and then we'll do a bit of a deep dive into what the different big data vendors are offering you today, especially looking at some of the big boys out there, and then doing a proper deep dive into Microsoft and how the Microsoft big data story is shaping up and how IM Group can actually contribute to that big data story. And then finally, we'll leave you with some visualization options around big data, using most of the technologies which are available out there today, and looking at a few other futuristic options as well. Quick introduction: IM Group, Information Management Group, formed in the UK in 1999, headquartered in the City of London. We've also got offices in Manchester, India, and New York. About approximately 120 staff within the Business Intelligence Group. As the name suggests, we are information management specialists with experience across various private and public sector industries. We're a multiple award-winning Microsoft Gold partner, and we're also partners with SAP Business Objects and Oracle. Simple statement: what we do? Well, we do provide strategies, services, and solutions for collaboration, engagement, and information management for helping our customers transform their organizations into a performant, well-informed decision-making organization. In terms of our services, we provide the entire spectrum of information management services, starting from evaluating your strategy around how information management fits in your organization, how it links to your internal business strategy, all the way into delivering solutions, executing solutions, with developers, project managers, etc., and then taking on your solution into a managed services scenario. So in short, kind of end-to-end soups to nuts business intelligence, information management, collaboration, and customer relationship management. These are all the aspects of Information Management Group that you can expect from us. A little bit about our awards and accreditations. IM Group has been awarded the Global Business Intelligence Partner of the Year 4 years in a row, and we were finalists as well in 2010, 2009, 2010. We're also one of the preferred suppliers of the Microsoft SQL Server CAT team, Customer Advisory Team, and we also sit on the Microsoft Partner Advisory Council for Business Intelligence, which gives us an early insight into Microsoft's roadmap of BI-related technologies. We're also, as I mentioned, an Oracle Gold partner, an SAP Business Objects partner as well, and we've also been identified as Gartner in one of their surveys as a top information management solution provider within Europe. So, a quick recap once again on what is big data. So what do you understand by big data? Now, here's a nice definition that we've kind of formulated from our various sources as well as our internal people, and which we believe is probably a very good interpretation of what big data is. And it can be generally described as extremely large data sets which are difficult to work with, and they're typically beyond the capability of the commonly used tool sets. And when I say commonly used tool sets, probably the database technologies which are out there today, and especially when it's required to be processed within a suitable time frame and its growth rather than being organic, is exponential in nature. However, if we were to kind of sum up big data in 3 short words, and you probably see these words floating around the internet almost everywhere now. Three words, or the 3 V's of big data: variety, volume, and velocity. So variety around the types of data, the range of data types and the data sources out there, the volume of data and the amount of data that we're dealing with, and of course also the speed at which the data is both coming in and going out and is being processed. If you've got all 3 of these, or probably one of these 3, then you probably could classify yourself in a category where you have a big data related requirement. Now, just to kind of put things in perspective, and again, some of this is a bit of a recap from our previous 2 webinars that we had. So what is big? Well, today we have about 1 quintillion bytes of data being created daily, which if we look at the numbers out there, that equates to about 888 petabytes of data, or about 900 terabytes. The other interesting anecdote is 90% of the data that you see today was created just in the last 2 years, which as you can clearly understand, is significant. And the volume of data almost doubles itself every 2 months. Where's all this data coming from? Well, lots and lots of different places: mobile phones, astronomy data, unstructured data from your documents, from all sorts of different business processes within the organization, sensor technologies, and of course social networks, RFID implementations especially across the retail industry, photo and video information. And once again, that's proliferated significantly through the use of social networks as well. So a huge variety of places from where big data is coming from. I won't go into the details of that today, because that's already been covered, but just a quick recap of all the different places where your business or processes around your business could be impacted by all these sources of big data. And some of the examples of big data out there, well, the ones which I particularly like is, 40 billion photographs are up on Facebook today. Walmart makes about 1 million transactions an hour. And if you just think of all the people that are there online on the internet today, that's about between 1 and 2 billion people every day. And what that means is the significant amount of web analytics information or web log data that's being generated out there, which could be of interest to your business, is, as we've mentioned already, not just that's not just an organic explosion; it's an exponential explosion of data. And why would you use big data? In other words, what's the monetization aspect of big data? Well, starting from internet search, predictive analytics, personalization, sentiment analysis, especially in industries like financial services, where you're trying to analyze the sentiment of a particular stock or a particular trade through various feeds, including social network feeds, risk analysis and risk management, credit risk, credit scoring, and also fraud detection and abnormal trading pattern analysis. Some of the many things that you could potentially do if you actually had access to all the information that is being generated out there every minute. So that was probably a very quick look at what big data was and what our understanding today is of big data, where it's coming from and what it can do for you. So that actually takes us into the crux of today's topic, which is looking at what people are really doing with big data and what it means in terms of a technology strategy. What are the different pieces of the puzzle of when you're talking of big data? And we'll look at the top 5 out there. These are the top 5 from my favorites point of view. It might not be top 5 from the way the internet or the way the industry today classifies them, but yeah, we do hope that it kind of reflects with what your understanding is as well. But before I actually go into the vendors themselves, I think there's one very important aspect that we should cover around big data, which is Hadoop. So what exactly is Hadoop, and how does it actually impact big data? Now, if we go by kind of classical bookish definitions, it's basically a very highly scalable, fault-tolerant grid operating system for data storage and data processing. Now, if you think about how we are dealing with the big data problem today, or the big data opportunity today, effectively, it's a marriage of two different elements. So on the one hand, we'll talk about storage, and you'll hear a term out there, and various variants of that term, HDFS, which basically stands for Hadoop Distributed File System, and we'll show you in a second what that means and how that works. And the other very important aspect of big data is MapReduce. So while HDFS focuses on the storage element of big data, how can you actually store billions of bytes of information in a fault-tolerant, self-healing, high-bandwidth environment, MapReduce looks at how we could potentially parallelize massive processing tasks into a distributed architecture, and then at the end of it all, get all the information back into the reduced layer and get the desired results out of that operation. The other aspect of big data is, it operates both on unstructured and structured data, and there is a large and active ecosystem around Hadoop that actually makes it work. So there are there is an open source community out there, but there's also a commercial community out there which is quite proactively supporting the Hadoop the Hadoop process and system. So if we look at HDFS and MapReduce in a bit of a diagrammatic format here. So what we're looking at here is the information here, which potentially could be stored across these 5 disk sets out there, and 5 is just a bit of a representative number here. Within HDFS, basically this is now being replicated in a 3-way replication across these 5 different nodes, so that if any of these nodes suddenly fail, you've got enough redundancy within this paradigm that will ensure that you still have the data available for access to you. Now, the most important aspect of this architecture, in addition to, of course, the fault tolerance, is also the massive parallelism that you can achieve through this architecture. And that's where MapReduce plays a big role. Effectively, MapReduce consists of 2 very important steps, the map step and the reduce step. Now, the map step basically takes a problem and paralyzes that problem and splits it across all the multiple nodes within the cluster, and then the reduce step finally gets the results back from all of those different nodes and makes it available to you. So if you think of, let's say, a very simple operation like a sort operation, which could earlier take days to complete, if you now distribute that sort operation across 1,000 nodes, that could potentially come back to you within seconds. The other aspect of the HDFS file system is that by distributing out the storage across these multiple nodes, you're also achieving a huge amount of parallelism in the amount of I/O that you could potentially get from some of these systems. Because if you think of a single average connected disk, the amount of throughput or I/O that you could probably get out of that disk is in the order of several tens of megabytes, and in the best case probably up to a gigabyte. However, if you actually parallelize that storage now across these multiple nodes, you're effectively multiplying the amount of I/O and bandwidth that's available to access that data. So if you think of several well, let's say low tens of megabytes from each node of attached disk, by multiplying that now across, let's say, 1,000 nodes, you've suddenly increased the bandwidth and the throughput of this throughput and I/O of the system to be 1,000 times faster, and you suddenly you're talking of throughputs in the order of a few terabytes a second. If you look at the Hadoop ecosystem as well, it's not a standalone it's not a standalone system out there. So as I mentioned, at the very bottom of the diagram, you have the distributed file system, and on top of that, you basically have the MapReduce layer, which effectively schedules the jobs, executes the jobs, and then brings the outputs from those jobs together. Now, of course, it's great to say that you can divide out the information and the work out there and get it all back. But obviously, the next obvious question that comes to everyone's mind is, so how do I actually access all this information? So there is a lot of work that's going on currently, and a lot of it is in production domain as well, around accessing this information from the MapReduce layer and making it available to standard tools which are out there. And we'll be visiting some of those tools today as well in this webinar. So on the one hand, you have a new data flow querying language called Pig Latin, and this was developed by people at Yahoo, and today Pig Latin provides you with a declarative language that allows you to query the information and perform data processing tasks on your data. But more importantly, an important aspect to kind of keep in mind here is the reason why we probably cannot use just plain vanilla SQL, at least today, on top of this information, on top of this data, is that the most important aspect of the whole MapReduce architecture is being able to parallelize information, parallelize the processing, and get the information together. So no matter what query language we use, we have to ensure that we can achieve that parallelism in order to achieve the throughput that we are expecting from that system. So Pig allows you to do that in a declarative way, whereas Hive, on the other hand, the Hive query language, allows you to get that information back in a much more SQL-type fashion. What you also have out there is a technology called Scoop, which allows you to perform ETL-type tasks on the MapReduce layer and then connect to various database technologies which are out there. And of course, once you've got that layer of interoperability in the middle, you can then access your information using the standard tool sets that you're already familiar with, which is visualizing information through standard BI tools and standard RDBMS tools, relational database management system tools. That's a quick look at the Hadoop ecosystem. So now we take once again another quick look at the various vendors out there, especially the big boys out there. What are they doing, and what's their core message out there? So the first one, which probably comes to the table, is the combination between Cloudera and Oracle. Now, Cloudera, interestingly, is one of the oldest and largest software and service providers around Hadoop. Probably one of the first few people who actually brought out Hadoop into the open source world. Although Hadoop itself and MapReduce algorithms itself were developed much earlier, some of it came out of the group of people working at Google as well. But that's a different story. We'll go there now. Now, what Cloudera today provides you primarily two very important things. One is the Cloudera Manager, which actually allows you to create Hadoop clusters through a wizard-based, UI-based installation and configuration manager called the Cloudera Manager, and it also provides you with dedicated support via its Cloudera support service. So what that effectively means is Cloudera is kind of building its own ecosystem around providing people with the ways and means of building systems around the overall Hadoop ecosystem, and then put a layer of services and support around that ecosystem. Now, of course, Cloudera obviously is a very important player, but they've become a lot more important today because of their exclusive partnership with Oracle, which, if we look at the diagram on the right, that kind of gives us an idea of where the Oracle roadmap is currently headed, where Oracle is planning to launch the Oracle Big Data Appliance, which will effectively be running on Linux and Java, and it will have a Hadoop layer, an Oracle loader for Hadoop, and also an Oracle data integrator, which is Hadoop enabled. It will also provide users with an Oracle NoSQL database. A quick point to make out here, NoSQL doesn't necessarily stand for NoSQL. It stands for not only SQL. So once again, it's another variant of SQL out there which effectively leverages the parallel processing power of Hadoop and similar technologies. A look at another vendor now, and Amazon. Now, Amazon obviously has a completely different model here. Amazon basically allows people to use MapReduce as a service, especially on the Amazon EC2 cloud and also the Amazon S3 storage subsystem. It also allows you to partner with various other third-party vendors and then kind of complete the overall ecosystem by using tools like, for instance, the Karmosphere Analyst, which will allow you to not only have your core Hadoop cluster, but also layer on top of analysis and BI using tools like Karmosphere. The third one on my list is EMC Greenplum. Now, the reason why they're also very important in this space is they're probably one of the first people out there to actually identify the commonality or the value in bringing together your standard databases and your Hadoop databases. In other words, the bringing together of structured and unstructured data. So today, the Greenplum UAP, as it's known today, that will effectively service not just the data scientist and the data engineer, but also the data analyst and the BI analyst and the line of business end user, using at the end of the day an appliance-based architecture which contains both the Greenplum database and the Hadoop database and the entire Hadoop system within that appliance, and then provide access to that information through a data access layer and other third-party and partner tools. IBM, probably one of the biggest boys out there. Again, they have not stayed away from the big data story either. And if we look at IBM, then what we see is the IBM Big Insights offering, which the diagram probably is self-explanatory in here, which looks at providing a basic Apache Hadoop service, but then surrounding that with a layer of Pig Latin, and then on top of that providing the connectors directly into IBM DB2, and then also provision of IBM Big Sheets, which is a spreadsheet type analysis tool that allows you to analyze big data. And of course, more importantly, it also makes this entire ecosystem available on the IBM Smart Cloud. And the last one on my list, before I go into a deeper dive, is Hortonworks. Now, why is Hortonworks suddenly so important in this discussion? Well, Hortonworks, interestingly, is a spin-off from Yahoo, with about 50 of the original Hadoop professionals who were working on the Hadoop technology. They decided to form Hortonworks, and today they have suddenly become very important in this space. A, because of the union between Oracle and Cloudera, which meant that the other vendors out there needed to necessarily tie up with someone who's very strong in that space, and that has resulted in partnerships between Hortonworks and Teradata, Tailend, and Microsoft. Not all of them together, but individually between each of them and Hortonworks. Hortonworks is currently working on a version of Hadoop that will actually run on Windows Server. And they've also developed a Hive ODBC connector for Excel and Power Pivot, which hopefully we'll see in a few slides from now. So that takes us into probably the most important part of this webinar, which is Microsoft and big data. So what exactly is Microsoft doing with big data today? This is Microsoft's view of big data. This is from one of the publicly available diagrams that have been released by Microsoft on its big data roadmap. Now, at IM Group, based on the relationship that we have with Microsoft and based on all the work we do around Microsoft, we thought we'll take a slightly deeper look at this, and we've kind of paraphrased that diagram into something which is slightly different. I'll just make sure that I have actually enabled that slide and it's not hidden. Okay. Yeah, going back to the Microsoft Big Data slide. Now, this diagram probably looks a bit crowded, but it will be very easy to explain again how the Microsoft Big Data story is not really that different from most of the other big vendors, although what I would say is there are certain elements of value addition which Microsoft brings to the table, which probably is not yet there with most of the other vendors. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, what we're saying is data is coming in from lots of different types of sources. You've got unstructured data, streaming data, and structured data. Structured data is definitely not unknown to the Microsoft paradigm, especially the relational database paradigm. There are tools out there like SQL Server Integration Services or just any other ETL tool out there, even core .NET or Java, that can take information from these structured sources and put it into Microsoft relational database technology, which is SQL Server. I've put 4 servers on there, but basically what I wanted to kind of illustrate there is, depending on your needs and depending on the volume of data you have and the complexity of data you have and the level of performance that you require, you could just go for a standard self-build SQL Server 2012 or SQL Server 2008 R2, depending on where you are today. Or you could go for a reference build, which is the SQL Server fast track paradigm, which allows you to allows you to buy a data warehouse that has already been purposed and configured for a data warehouse type workload. And on the higher end, or the highest end, you could actually go for the SQL Server Parallel Data Warehouse, which provides you with a proper database appliance, which is a rack-based, proper, massively parallel processing architecture, MPP architecture. And PDW now is out there. It's available today, and it's being used in anger by a number of clients worldwide. But then also, on the other end of the spectrum, you also have SQL Azure, which allows you to actually experience SQL Server on the cloud. And depending on what your appetite is, depending on whether you want to go for a CapEx model or an OpEx model, whether you want everything on-premise or off-premise, I think there are a number of choices out there today which are available to you, which you could leverage. On the left-hand side of the screen, and this is probably the box which is new to this entire party, is the Hadoop box. Now, what we're seeing here is, based on the work that's going on between Microsoft and Hortonworks, Microsoft will be releasing Hadoop both on the Windows Server, if you're interested in a private cloud or an environment which you want hosted internally, or of course Hadoop on Windows Azure. The key thing to note here, of course, is across all the vendors that I have mentioned, everyone has pledged to support the Hadoop initiative and not fork away from the initial Hadoop design. And what that means is it's basically going to be very good for the overall big data community out there, because you wouldn't suddenly end up with various different versions of big data or big data technologies, which will go off into various tangents as time passes by, because they're all committed to sticking to the basic Hadoop principles around MapReduce and HDFS, which I would say is definitely commendable for all the vendors out there. What that also means is if today you're not ready for Hadoop on Azure, you could probably run Hadoop on a classic Linux-based HDFS system and still use the rest of the SQL architecture to leverage the information in the way that I've shown in the diagram. Now, now in terms of the data flows, of course, you've got the traditional data flows going out of the database, which is via ODBC or ODB drivers, and also data going into the BI semantic model. Again, something that a lot of people are already familiar with, especially through the use of analysis services that allows you to query the data using SQL, using MDX, using DAX, using DMX. But what's also very important to note out here is the connector between Hadoop and SQL Server. So Hortonworks is currently working on pig/scoop connectors between the two, which will allow very fast loads of data from the unstructured paradigm into the structured paradigm and allow you to analyze that information. But also, if you see the arrow on the far left, which is the Hive ODBC connector, which is actually available out there today, although in CTP form, and that is something that allows you to connect directly to the Hadoop cluster using tools like Excel, for instance, and access data directly onto the data visualization layer without having to go through the entire BI semantic model or SQL Server if you really wanted to go down that route. But of course, what we would also say is having the BI semantic model definitely would add a lot of value to your overall BI estate, especially your big data estate, because it will provide you with that unified access to information, whether it be structured, unstructured, or streaming data. The end users or the data analysts will be able to access that data from one uniform data model, and depending on where the data has come from, the BI semantic model itself will then route the queries to the right environment using the right query language. And the data visualization layer therefore becomes completely independent of what kind of implementation you're actually looking at, whether it's Hadoop-based or SQL-based or a combination of the two. The visualization layer then allows you to just connect to the BI semantic model, and you basically can leverage the power of all the existing BI tools out there, including reporting services, Power View, Excel, Power Pivot, even data on iPads, and also going forward do predictive analytics on top of that same information, or embed BI into line of business applications. With that, we go to the last section of big data. I could do a quick detour to show you what Microsoft has today in terms of being able to use the Hive connector into a big data repository. So what I've done today is I have created a data repository for me using the Windows Azure Apache Hadoop environment. Created a data cluster for me, and what I'm planning to do is use plain vanilla Excel with the Hive connector, and what you see is the Hive pane out there, which allows me to connect to this instance. And if I get it right, I should be connected in. Standard Microsoft username, passwords, etc. And that will actually allow me to connect to the data that's stored in the on the Hadoop cluster on SQL Azure, on Windows Azure, and it will provide me with a pane on the right-hand side of the screen, which you can see now, where I will be able to query these objects in a pretty similar fashion to SQL, where I'll be able to choose the columns from them, define criteria, aggregate information, do sorting on that information, and also limit the number of rows that are coming back, which is something quite popular with MySQL users. And then also it does allow me to actually manually edit the Hive query language itself. So it is a language, as I said, pretty similar to SQL, and it's probably a much shorter learning curve than some of the other languages out there in the Hadoop world, in the big data world. And I can literally manually edit that information, and so the data has now come back. It's gone out through our firewall and connected to Windows Azure, and as you'll see now, it actually exposes to me the structure that has been defined for the particular data source on Windows Azure, and I could potentially select whatever number of columns I want from there. I could apply criteria to that same screen, and it will allow me to then execute that query through the MapReduce layer on Windows Azure and get the data back through Hive. And we've just done that from another example here. That's all the way straight from the cloud. That takes us into, as I said, the last part of our presentation, which is focusing on visualization on big data. Now, I wouldn't do too much talking around this. I'll let you take a look at some of the different visualization options that you have today around big data, not only on normal desktops, on normal laptops and desktops, but also on mobile devices, on iPhones, iPads, and Windows Slate devices. So I think the key theme around most of the visualization that is happening today, as opposed to what we've seen in the last few years, is that the people's expectations have definitely exceeded the demand and supply out there, and people are more and more looking for a much more consumer grade experience in terms of having access to the data and being able to analyze that data, but not just not just look at numbers, but also visualize that information in a much more pleasing way. Again, we're taking a look at a few examples of SharePoint reporting services and iPad delivery options. For instance, on the screen, what we see right now is again data being made available through iPads using the Roam BI tool, which once again fits onto the BI semantic model and exposes this data directly through the servers onto your iPads and any other iDevices out there. Again, taking a look at a similar example where this is particularly called a Cardex view, where it allows you to look at a particular data item and analyze the information associated with that particular data item. We're also looking at map-based representation of data, which again, for most geographically dispersed industries and companies out there, being able to geospatially represent data is becoming more and more important today. Using plain vanilla tools like Performance Point that allows you to do standard dashboards, scorecards, drill up and down through information, or just good old reporting services, which actually gives you much more powerful reporting and analytics capabilities today than that was ever imagined but 4 or 5 years ago, with pixel perfect dashboards that end users could virtually create themselves. So having taken a look at that, I think the key question now, especially for most of your organizations, is firstly determining, so what is big for your organization, and do you actually have a business case to unlock the business value in this data? Does your current information management strategy cover big data at all? Have you actually even thought of big data? Have you thought of any touch points within your organization where there's a potential of capturing a lot of consumer information, a lot of market information, which you're currently not doing, that can add significant value to the way you currently run your business in terms of understanding your customer, understanding your products, understanding your markets? And how do you leverage your existing investment and environment by integrating big data into your existing architecture? So does embracing big data mean throwing away all the data warehouses that you currently have in place? No, necessarily not. So if you do want to have that conversation with us, we're out there. IM Group has been working in the big data space for the last year or two. We can advise you on your big data strategy. We can show you the roadmaps of what is out there today and what is going to be available tomorrow. We can execute projects and programs for you that will allow you to leverage the power of big data, and at the same time leverage your existing environments in database and development technologies. And then once you have that in place, if you're not really interested in managing it yourself or supporting it yourself, we could do that for you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for this webinar. I'm Saranjan Som, and a special thanks to Dan Perrin, Gunter Richter, Gary Miller, Claire Price, and Panos Haliotis. I hope you join us again in the Big Data webinar series. The 3 webinar episodes that we've delivered for you will be available on our webinar archive. If you're interested in having access to those webinars and watching them on YouTube, or if you're interested in embarking on a big data journey, please do feel free to get back in touch with us. Thank you once again for joining us, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.